summary. So if you're interested, you can buy the book. It's available for sale in Wisma Merdeka, a very popular shopping center in Kota Kinabalu, but many shops are closed now. I think the pandemic has hit us very hard. It's called the Borneo Bookshop, ground floor, phase 2. Ground floor, you can pick up my book there. But very briefly, I had the first chapter. I had this preparation for full-time ministry, so I took just a couple of pages about my life before going for theological education. As I mentioned earlier, just a couple of paragraphs about my legal practice, the last case I did, and how the Lord blessed my business in the final year to open the door for me, open the way for me. I was owing Yayasan Sabah 60,000 ringgit. That's my study loan for 5 years in New Zealand. And it was a step of faith. I went to New Zealand for a young family. My son was only 2 years old. We stayed in a motel for 3 days and 3 nights near the New Zealand Baptist Theological Seminary in Victoria Avenue, Remuera, in Auckland. And after the 3 days in the motel, I know of a Fijian widow, so I visited her, and she welcomed us really into her home. She was so hospitable, close to her 80s, I think. I met her in her late 60s, in the 1987, when I was a legal assistant in Whangarei. So I came down to Auckland either for business or for pleasure, and I think we stayed there for 2 weeks, and then we moved out to Rockfield Road, Penrose. That's another suburb, which is quite far from Remuera, but by then I bought a second-hand car, I think Hyundai Accent, for 6,000 New Zealand dollars. Very good car, no problem. And we stayed there for almost 2 years until we went back to Malaysia at the end of 1994. But the interesting thing is that after 1 semester, just at the close of the first semester, the announcement came at the Baptist Seminary in Victoria F that they were moving to a new campus, a new place. You guess what? They moved to Penrose, Rockfield Road. I could walk there in less than half an hour, but I drove. I guess I was a bit lazy. I drove, and I think just a few minutes drive along the same road, Rockfield Road. So I would have saved petrol maybe $2,000-3,000 over 2 years, because I had to drive for at least 1 hour, 30 minutes before they moved to Penrose. I have to drive 30 minutes to the college and back, and sometimes even in the mid-90s, Auckland could be quite congested. Traffic could be quite congested, and so the Lord bless us, and it's so much more convenient attending my lectures and courses. But I did take 1 or 2 courses at St. John's College. That is the Anglican College at St. John's Road, which is quite far away from Penrose. And I also ventured down to Auckland University, the Central Library, to study, to read. In fact, in my end of 93, after my first year, there was a long holiday. I didn't work because I had my savings, so I spent a lot of time reading. I remember reading almost every volume of John Wesley's sermons and notes at the Central Library of Auckland University. And I have John Wesley's sermons with me. I purchased them, I think, when I was in Singapore, I think. So it's with me, 6 or 7 volumes of John Wesley's sermons and writings. Amazing. So, that's my preparation for ministry. I talk about my study of Hebrew and Greek. I was the only student studying or pursuing Hebrew and Greek at the same time. Normally, theological students or even non-theological students, they just pick one language, one biblical language. But I knew my time was short, so I picked both languages. And that served me well. Year 2, University of Auckland, I managed to finish Year 3 Hebrew, because Year 2 Hebrew is first semester and Year 3 Hebrew is second semester of the second year. So, and praise God for giving me the ability. In fact, I really struggle with my biblical languages, and oftentimes I spend half the time studying. The 3 or 4 other subjects I hardly spend time except when I'm researching essays and so on. But in my book, I talk about my love for the Bible. Basically, when I was a law student in the 80s, 82 to 87 or 86, 87, I was already working at the University of Canterbury. I spent countless hours, at least 3 or 4 years. The first 2 years plus, I just read the Bible, King James Version. But by 1984 or early 85 to 87, I started reading commentary seriously. And when I returned to Sabah, I brought with me the New Century Bible series, Anchor Bible. I brought from New Zealand. I brought many books with me back to Sabah. And then as a lawyer, I also kept on reading. In fact, I spent probably half the time reading commentaries. I bought many commentaries on the Word series from Salvation Bookshop at Karamunsing. That's how I got myself grounded, really, for 84 to 93, 9-10 years. I was studying the Bible in almost an academic way, although self-study, because I was reading commentaries. First 2.5 years I read just the Bible, the King James Version. That's about it. So praise God for that. So that's all for the first chapter, and I'm back home for the next video. Thank you for watching. God bless you.